would love to hear kind of how you kind of grew in this understanding, because it sounded like you were saying when you joined Taylor Marshall to do those videos where you were clearly scratching an itch, right? People were just furious and wanted somebody to say what was in plain sight. That you were kind of more skeptical of the Second Vatican Council. I want to know like why that was and what I mean, you've kind of expressed it a little bit, what it was as you began to investigate that kind of changed your mind on that. Because I think for a lot of people, they would see the abuses that have taken place after the Second Vatican Council. I have confessed on this podcast more than once that during a high school mass on a tape recorder for the closing hymn, I played a Metallica song, Mama Said, from Load, and that's disgusting. And but like, I mean, maybe shame on me, but like shame on like the parish and the church and the priest. Nobody
it's a good song. In your defense,
to be fair, it's a good song, but nobody taught me that you shouldn't kind of. So obviously there are a lot of abuses that kind of followed on the heels of Vatican II. Do you think that that's why a lot of people want to just reject it outright, and is that perhaps why you were skeptical of it?
Yeah, let's just state right out up front. It's a combination. The mistrust for Vatican II is a combination of the post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy and good solid reasoning. Post hoc ergo propter hoc means. It's a fallacy. It means, I believe that this is caused by this because this was after this.
Right.
To some extent, it's that. In another more complex way that I'd like to talk to you about here today, it's not. In some ways, Vatican II, what before, during, and after the council, was the coming out party. I still believe this. And it's well documented. The research turns up this as well. There was an ill intent by many of the most powerful people there, and that they caucused effectively. They won many to their side. I mean, even the most conservative people there, Archbishop Lefebvre, signed all the documents, which Trads also will get mad if you bring up, but it's true. So they were effective, terrifically efficient at caucusing toward the end of, I think, an evil intent. Skilabix, one of the kind of lefties there, famously said, "We know what we're going to do with the documents. We made them sort of anodyne now, but we're going to stretch them later." You really do see that with the Latin Mass. I am fully trad when it comes to what happened with the liturgical abuses. It's obvious. I call it binder drop theory. If I'm a substitute teacher in a classroom of 7th graders, and at 2:57 p.m., all 30 of the students drop their binders all at once. It's ubiquitous. To assume that there's not some sort of prefabricated plan in place is absurd. To believe that was just a coincidence, right? At 2:57, that all of the binders, the parishes across America, or 99% of them, are doing the weird amalgamation, concoction novelties in the Mass that are like quasi-creative in a hippie 70s way and just stupid and anodyne.
Pizza Coke masses. We've heard of those terrible things.
Yeah, how are people all doing that at once? So there had to be some plan. So that's a really solid basis that traditionalists have on the behalf of traditionalists for believing there's got to be some plan. It's got to be from Vatican II. And it was. They're meeting at my school, where I was in the doctoral program before, the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome, where I studied under Father Kevin Flannery. They were meeting there at night during the council, the lefties were, and they were changing the rules by day. So that's real.
I just have to insert my own anecdote here. I was speaking at a men's conference in Kansas, and I forget where, but the church, I saw a photo of how the church used to look, and it was breathtakingly beautiful. And now it was whitewashed and just not beautiful. And I said to the guy, "This is a bloody tragedy," and he was probably in his, 50s or something, I forget. But he said shortly after the Second Vatican Council, they took these statues out into the parking lot and all of the school kids smashed them with hammers. And I just was incredulous. I thought, there's no way that's true. That's like, why would you even say that? And he called over a friend of his who was in his class, and sure enough, he kind of backed it up. Yeah, we all smashed them. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was, to your point about this all happening around the same time, this didn't sort of spring out of nowhere, I guess.
Yeah, it's not to be believed. And let me just say, though, that the liturgical abuses, which don't, here's my defense, okay? Here's my entire position.
Okay.
when we judge the 21 ecumenical councils, Matt, what we mean juridically, what we're judging, not that we're in a place to judge, but we use our minds to judge. We're judging the documents or the sacred constitutions. So there's a very real and a very meaningful distinction between talking about the Second Vatican Council in terms of what happened at the council, what all these lefties did to Cardinal Ottaviani, the number 2 in the church, venerable, old, conservative, good soul, how they treated him, the way lefties treat everyone when they get together in groups. They mistreat them. It was horrible. They turned off the mic on him. That's real. When he was speaking, he was half blind. It was a pitiable scene. It was bad. I have no doubt about that. But when we talk about Vatican II ex post, from our position now, we're talking about the documents. And here's my whole point. The documents contain, in some places, ambiguity, and in some places, not even much ambiguity. They don't contain error. Even Sacrosanctum Concilium, the liturgical document, that seems to be the one that's really especially vague and doesn't have errors in it, but was very clearly used by the Concilium, the kind of subcommittee group. They seized upon the vagueness to go and write bad stuff into it within the next 3 to 6 years. So that's true. But the other documents that get attacked relentlessly by fellow traditionalists, when you go and you look at the spots that they're saying, oh, look at this line. Like a lot of times they added a word. They literally will have added a word to make it worse. The same like Martin Luther did. Or if you look a paragraph above or below, there's something so thornily Catholic that you can't even believe it came from Vatican II, and it explains away any ambiguity there. It's the opposite experience, Matt, that one has when one checks on Vatican II than one has when they check on the Magisterium of Francis. Every time I go check into a Francis quote, I find 10 more things that are bad. The original quote was as bad as I thought, and it's really bad. I've been researching Vatican II for the better part of a year now, and almost everything I look at it gets way better. You see what I mean? When you check on it, it gets way better, and you're like, whew, okay, this was a misnomer or just a kind of fib.
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.